Thank you for joining. We're going to walk through a recovery process for the identity manager's IME when it's been deleted. There is a dependency on the IM userstore that must exist, and as well as the two IDs for the DSA admin and the IM admin must exist before the IME will be recreated on the virtual appliance. And we'll walk through this process. If I drill into the virtual appliance that's out on Amazon, you can see it's running. The environment exists. If I open up terminal shells to the systems, we can see if we do a tail of the process while we're monitoring. And then over here, I'm going to go ahead and just do a quick status, see how we are before we start. And it looks like provisioning servers all running. The only thing we don't care about is the portal right now. But the provisioning server and the data DSAs are all running, and we can see the IM user store is available as well, and the data DSAs for those. So first thing we're going to do is we're actually going to delete the IME. So go over here to the outside, click on this, and hit delete. We'll allow the environment to be deleted, and then we'll stop all the data DSAs. And we'll see what kind of behavior we get when we do a restart. This should only take a few moments, and then we'll get an output. All right, we're successful in deleting the environment. We continue. We can now see the environment does not exist. And they do tell you to go ahead and just do a factory reset to let it go. Before we do anything like that, let's go back to our prompt. We're going to issue to the DSC account. Issue DX server stop all. So the router, the userstore DSAs will be stopped, including the provisioning server data DSAs. There is a light dependency on the provisioning server to start up the IME, but that dependency does not prevent it from being created. So to showcase this, I will leave the provisioning server data DSAs down as well. All right, all the data DSAs are down. Let's just do our standard restart IM. And we'll showcase the dependency in the IM logs as it restarts. So again, the IME is deleted. We should see our startup steps progress through. And it will fail out when it tries to attempt to recreate it. So there are our startup steps, 1 through 30. And then we got an error here. If I scroll up so you can see the error, I'll shrink it down a little bit. It says the user does not exist. Well, it says it doesn't exist because the data DSA is not up right now for the user store. So failed to connect is the primary reason. And the secondary reason due to the primary is the user doesn't exist. So we need to have that user and the data DSA available. If we look at this first message, we see that it's listening on the alias caim server to this port. This is the router port for the data DSA that we can emulate. So if we go out here, just right here, do a quick little check. Let me do a restart. We'll log back in. Management console is still available, but the environment does not exist. We click on directory objects. They do exist. We did not delete any of those. But there'll be an attempt to try to communicate to them, and even though we'll see them because it's going to pull it from the database, they will not have connectivity. And just give that a second to refresh. And it's got the little X there still spinning. And we'll showcase that the directories, we didn't touch those. And if we look at the logs as it's going through, it just still says just the environment doesn't exist. It's a little confused. All right, so let's just stop that for a second. Let's go back over here SU back to DSA. What we're proposing is a process to create a stub DSA using the same port this is expecting with account. So let me just cat into that file so we can take a look at it. And let me just clean up the screen to make it easier to read. And let's scroll back up here to the top. So we're going to define a stub data DSA, the same port that's talking to the router. We'll make sure the suffix matches what is expected. The DSA's ID will be there, as well as the primary IM user and the IM public user. We're going to read it in the current password, since this password is not stored on the appliance in clear text anywhere. So we'll ask for that password. We'll do it silently so we can enter it, make sure that's the same password that's in the existing solution. We'll stop all data DSAs before we do any work. If we had any prior stub one, we'll go ahead and remove it. And we're going to remove any prior configuration as well. So any other files named with that said stub DSA.star, so the DXIs, DXCs, and the DXGs. We're going to remove the home folder, the data folder. And then we're going to do a dxnewdb. Go ahead and create it, only 1 meg. We don't need that much in there. And keep the same suffix. And this dxnew DSA will attempt to start it, even though it's not set correctly yet. And it will fail. We'll just ignore the error right now. We'll make sure it's stopped. We do need to update the DX file to match the vApp's default name convention. The names that were prior, that were default DXC and all the subfolders under config have been renamed to vApp default. So we'll just change that into our stub ID. And we do want the schema for the IM to be set up. So with DXnew DSA creates default DXG, we want it to be IM DXG. And that allows this to match the IM user store. We will turn on trace, look at the time. So if we have any issues, we can watch it in the logs of CA directory. And we can create a brand new, we do require it in the latest version of CA directory, we do need a TLS cert for the DSA. Since it's owned by DSA, the EC2 user does not have access to it. We'd have to copy the temp, and the key store for Java key store that maintains these certificates so that the IM application can talk to the DSA is actually owned by the EC2 user, so the DSA user cannot access it. So we're just going to be clever here and just use the existing router DSA, and we'll link it from that file to this one. The IM solution does not care about the naming convention. As long as it's a certificate, it will still allow us to connect. So this is just a shortcut process to eliminate that for us jumping back and forth to 2 different IDs. We're going to create a stub LDAP file with the OU structure, the DSA admin user with the password we're going to enter. We're going to create the IM admin user that is expecting to see as a secondary process and make sure that the group membership and roles are all populated correctly. We did see a query for IM pub users, so we'll have that one added as well. And then make sure the group objects that it's looking for manager in case those are needed. So a very short LDAP file to be added. We'll do a dxloaddb load that file. We'll remove that file since we have a clear text password in there. And then just to validate that we have functionality, we'll go ahead and dump it back out just to see that the structure looks correctly. We'll install the auto start process just in case we need it. And then we'll go ahead and start the data DSA to make sure there's no issue. To validate we have authentication correctly, we'll do a DX search using that DSA user and to prove that we can see the entire structure that we created. Once that's created, we now have a running stub DSA that matches the IM user store, and we can watch the IME be rebuilt. So let me run this script. And you can run the script over and over again the way it's been set up. So let's just walk through the output right now, just so you can see it. So we started, we entered a password, you didn't see the password being typed, stopped all data DSAs, in routers just to make sure they are completely stopped. Removed any prior structure configurations. Create a brand new one. And you see that it does attempt to start. We just ignored the error. We stopped it. And then we updated the DXI file. We enabled trace mode. And we didn't create this certificate. We just used an existing one with a soft link. There's the soft link right there that you can see it. So we're pointing stub dsa.pim to actually the user store router. We create the LDAP, and we load the LDAP. And we did an extract of it so you can see it. And we have the DSA running, no problem. And we did our base search. And the base search came back with these objects. And we do a DX server status. We can see the only one running is this data DSA. So we are ready for testing. So now, there's all the logs for IM, still reporting error because it's not running. So if I go into the logs just to make sure, you still see the IME does not exist. All right, let's exit out of DSA, and we're just going to do a restart of IM as the EC2-user, and we'll watch the logs over here. We'll wait for the startup steps to show, and then we should see it creating the IME. Okay, so there's the framework, there's the startup steps, 1 through 30, there's the framework starting. We can now see this keyword here, deploying environment. So prior we had an issue at that stage where it was not creating the IME. Now that it's actually matched the queries it needed to see a service listening on that port with this ID, and possibly this one as well. And here you can see, after it's deployed the environment, it's now importing the role objects. And it says Active Directory right there, Azure, so some of them that are out of the box for the sample environment. Allow that to continue. If I go to the browser, just as curiosity, we'll just do a refresh here and see if we see anything. Nothing yet. Come back over in here to see what we're looking at. We just hit enter. And now it says import is complete, and it says starting environment. So the only thing right now it's going to probably still fail to start is we have the data DSAs stopped for the provisioning server. So let's just see if it actually created without the dependency of the provisioning server since the data DSAs are down. Let's go back over here. Okay, let's log in. And let's click on environments. And now we can see the environment was recreated. It is stopped because the provisioning server data DSAs are not running. If we click start, we should see an error message back over here. It attempts to start. All right. Yep, still stopped. Environment failed to start. All right, let's go back over here. Let's start all the, let's remove that temporary stub DSA. So we got a script here for that. Let me cap that one out just so you can see it. It's really simple. We're going to stop that DSA. We'll remove any auto start process. We'll unlink what we were using on the personality file for the TLS security. We'll do a find and execute and remove any files that have that naming convention. So any DXI, DXEs anywhere. And then we'll remove the data folder. And then we'll check that DX server status. And then we're going to allow the user to start up all the data DSAs. So let's do that. Step 03. Let's do DX server start all. And while the provisioning server can heal itself, we'll be kind to it and actually stop and start it. So let's exit out of here, SU to the IMPS user. And if we do a user bin ps-icf and grep for slapd, We can see it running, so let's do an IMPS stop and make sure it actually stops correctly. If it doesn't, we'll just do a user bin kill and make sure the PID files match up. So just up arrow again. Okay, so it is stopped. And we can use the alias as well, start underscore PS, which then actually calls this process. This makes it a little more obvious. All right, so that service came up. So if I hit S, just out of curiosity first. So it says provisioning server still stop. It should fix itself here. Right? All right, we'll let that refresh itself in a moment. We can do, just make sure stop, PS, start, PS, make sure the PID files are correct. Okay, so if you see this type of error message, the PID files got a little out of sync here. Let's fix this. Okay, just double check it. So it's not there. Let's start it with the normal stop and start. Make sure we don't have a PID constraint here. And do our S. So provisioning server looks good. User console not running. Let's go to the browser. Now let's click start. Okay, we are running. So we did a repair of the IME, showcasing that using a stub DSA, what the dependencies were that were being checked. So we can get back up, and if we need to modify the environment, the roles and tasks, something that's unique to our environment, we can load those in now. Same thing for the directories. We should be able to get into these and modify those as we need to as well. Thank you for your time.